May the 24th, 1981, over the warm blue waters of the Mediterranean Sea, an American-made F-14 Tomcat locked onto its target. In just a few seconds, a single missile was fired, one shot that would echo through aviation history. What happened next was so shocking, so devastating, that it changed how the world viewed aerial warfare. This is the story of the most devastating single missile shot ever fired, a strike so precise and destructive that it reminded every nation on Earth what modern air power could do, the era of the Tomcat. In the 1970s, the Cold War wasn't just a standoff, it was a race for dominance in the skies. The United States Navy needed a fighter that could defend carrier groups from long-range Soviet bombers and anti-ship missiles. The answer came in the form of one of the most iconic aircraft ever built, the Grumman F-14 Tomcat. This was no ordinary jet. The Tomcat was fast, sleek, and deadly. It could fly at over Mach 2 PAS, twice the speed of sound, and its variable geometry wings allowed it to switch between wide, stable configurations for takeoff and combat and swept back wings for blistering speed. But what truly made the F-14 legendary wasn't its looks, it was its teeth. The Tomcat carried a weapon that was years ahead of its time, the AIM-54 Phoenix missile. Each one of these missiles cost over $1 million, a technological marvel capable of engaging targets over 100 miles away. Guided by the Tomcat's AWG-9 radar, the Phoenix could track up to 6 enemy aircraft simultaneously and destroy them before they ever came close. It was the ultimate symbol of American air superiority. And in 1981, the world would see just how devastating that system really was, setting the stage. Tensions over the Mediterranean. The early 1980s were a volatile time. U.S. and Libyan forces frequently clashed over control of the Gulf of Sidra, an area Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi claimed as part of his national territory, despite international law recognizing it as international waters. The United States Navy, unwilling to back down, regularly conducted freedom of navigation exercises, flying carrier-based aircraft right through the contested zone to prove they wouldn't be intimidated. These operations weren't just military shows, they were political messages. But in such high-stakes encounters, it only took one wrong move to ignite chaos. The encounter, one jet, one missile, one moment. On August the 19th, 1981, 2 U.S. Navy F-14 Tomcats from VF Fierfias's Black Aces launched from the aircraft. Carrier USS Nimitz were patrolling the Gulf of Sidra. Their mission was simple: deterrence. Their orders were clear: do not engage unless provoked. But then radar picked up 2 fast-moving contacts approaching from the south. They were Libyan. Soothing did 22 fighter fighter, bombers, Soviet-built jets under Libyan command. The Libyans were closing in fast, and as the American pilots watched, one of the Su-22s made an aggressive move. At a range of less than 2 miles, the Libyan jet suddenly launched an Na-2 atoll missile straight at the lead Tomcat. The missile streaked past harmlessly, a near miss. But that was all the permission the Americans needed. In response, the lead F-14, piloted by Commander Henry Hank Kleeman and his radar intercept officer Lieutenant David Venlet, dove and rolled, locking their radar onto the attacking aircraft. The second Tomcat, flown by Lieutenant Lawrence Muchinsky, swung around to intercept. Within seconds, the AWG-9 radar achieved lock-on. The tone sounded, a cold, steady beeping that every pilot recognizes as the sound of death. Muchinsky squeezed the trigger, the shot that shocked the world. A white plume streaked from the Tomcat's belly, the AIM-9 Sidewinder missile. Not the long-range Phoenix, but a heat-seeking short-range weapon ignited and screamed across the sky. The Libyan Su-22 tried to evade, but it was too late. The Sidewinder found its target, slamming directly into the engine exhaust. The jet vanished in a ball of orange fire, obliterated in a single devastating hit. Seconds later, the second Libyan fighter tried to flee, but the remaining F-14 locked on and fired another missile. Another explosion. Both enemy aircraft were destroyed in less than 60 seconds, 2 kills, 0 American casualties. In one of the most decisive one-sided dogfights in modern history, the entire world took notice, not just because of the outcome, but because of how it happened. One perfectly executed missile shot had ended a confrontation before it even began. The power behind the missile. What made the Tomcat's weapons so fearsome wasn't just their explosive power, it was the technology that guided them. The aim? 54 Phoenix, though not used in that specific engagement, represented the pinnacle of missile guidance. It could track targets over 100 miles away, lock onto bombers flying at 50,000 feet, and destroy them with pinpoint accuracy. No other nation had anything comparable at the time. The combination of the AWG-9 radar and the Phoenix missile gave the Tomcat the ability to eliminate threats before they even got close to the fleet, a revolutionary concept for naval defense. But the 1981 Gulf of Sidra encounter showed that even with older short-range missiles like the Sidewinder, the Tomcat was more than capable of winning. It wasn't just the machine that made it deadly, it was the crew behind it and the systems working in perfect harmony, global reaction and shockwaves. The Libyan government immediately denounced the incident, calling it an act of aggression. The United States stood firm, releasing radar data, radio transcripts, and gun camera footage proving the Libyans had fired first. International observers were stunned. The engagement demonstrated not only America's technological superiority, but also its readiness to defend itself with deadly precision. In the span of seconds, one missile had destroyed years of Libyan military posturing and reinforced the dominance of the US Navy's carrier groups. The world now knew the F-14 Tomcat was not to be trifled with. The Tomcats reign in the skies. The F-14 went on to serve as the Navy's premier air superiority fighter for over 3 decades. It became an icon not just of military power, but of pop culture, immortalized by the 1986 film Top Gun, where Tom Cruise's Maverick helped cement the jet's legendary status. Its combination of speed, maneuverability, and advanced weapon systems made it one of the most respected and feared aircraft ever built. But behind the Hollywood glamour was a machine of cold precision, designed for one purpose: to dominate the skies and protect the fleet at all costs. From the Gulf of Sidra to Iraq and Afghanistan, the Tomcat proved again and again why it was one of the most capable fighter jets of its generation. The final flight. By the early 2000s, the era of the Tomcat was coming to an end. Maintenance costs were skyrocketing, and the Navy had begun transitioning to the newer F/A-18 Super Hornet. In 2006, the last operational F-14 Squadron VF-31 Tomcatters flew its final mission. The mighty jet that had ruled the skies for over 30 years was officially retired. But the legend didn't die. The image of the Tomcat, wings swept back, streaking through the sky at Mach 2, remains one of the most powerful symbols of American air power ever captured. And that single missile shot in 1981, that perfect, devastating moment, remains frozen in history as the ultimate example of precision, power, and control. Why it was the most devastating shot? It wasn't the number of casualties that made it devastating. It was the message it sent. One missile, one moment, and an entire nation's air force humiliated in full view of the world. It proved that technology and training could overcome aggression. It showed that American pilots were prepared to act instantly, decisively, and flawlessly. In that one flash of fire over the Mediterranean, the F-14 Tomcat didn't just win a dogfight, it won a psychological war. When the US Navy introduced the F-14 Tomcat in the early 1970s, it wasn't just unveiling a fighter jet, it was revealing a technological masterpiece built to dominate the skies. The Tomcat was designed during a time when aerial combat was transforming rapidly, and America needed a fighter that could defend entire carrier groups from high-speed Soviet bombers and missiles. What they got was a machine that didn't just meet expectations, it redefined them. With its powerful twin Pratt and Whitney TF30 engines, the F-14 could reach speeds exceeding Mach 2. Its most striking feature, the variable geometry wings, gave it unmatched versatility. Extended wide, they provided lift and control during carrier takeoffs and landings. Swept back, they turned the Tomcat into a supersonic predator capable of tearing through the sky with astonishing agility. The F-14 wasn't just fast. It was intelligent, flexible, and lethal. But what truly set the Tomcat apart was its weapon, the AIM-50 Phoenix missile. Weighing over 1,000 pounds and capable of reaching targets more than 100 miles away, the Phoenix was the most advanced air missile ever built at the time. It could reach speeds over Mach 5 and was guided by the Tomcat's AWG-9 radar system, an innovation that could track up to 24 enemy aircraft and engage 6 simultaneously. Together, the F-14 and the Phoenix missile formed a partnership so powerful that enemies often turned away the moment they appeared on radar. Then came the day that would define the Tomcat's legacy. August the 19th, 1981. The Gulf of Sidra, off the coast of Libya, was calm, but tension simmered beneath the surface. Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi had declared the entire Gulf as Libya, territorial waters, a claim the United States refused to recognize. To challenge it, American Navy F-14 Tomcats from the Dutch USS Nimitz patrolled the skies in what they called freedom of navigation missions. 2 Libyan Su-22 fighter fighters scrambled to intercept the Tomcats. As they approached head-on, one of the Libyan jets suddenly fired an TOW missile, a clear act of aggression. The Tomcats reacted instantly. Commandant Henry Kleeman and his radar intercept officer, Lieutenant Dave Venlet, rolled into a tight defensive maneuver. Once they were clear, they retaliated with precision. A single Amen 9 Sidewinder missile, Laxmet 9 defendage, Kach Jan de Sidewinder, some Kach Den. Once they won some times, up Kach to Chap defended. Decide. Streaked through the sky, locked onto its target, and struck with devastating accuracy. The Libyan jet exploded in midair. Moments later, the second Su-22 met the same fate. 2 missiles, 2 kills. Less than a minute. The engagement was over before most radar operators even realized it had begun. That encounter wasn't just a small skirmish, it was a statement. It proved that the F-14 Tomcat could not only dominate the battlefield, but do so with surgical precision. The Gulf of Sidra incident cemented the Tomcat's reputation as a predator that never missed. It showed the world what American engineering, training, and nerve could accomplish when tested under pressure. In the years that followed, the F-14 became an icon. From patrolling Cold War skies to starring in the 1986 blockbuster Top Gun, it became a symbol of courage, dominance, and national pride. Every time its engines roared across the deck of a carrier, sailors would pause to watch because they knew they were witnessing history in motion. Even after it was retired in 2006, the Tomcat's legend never died. In museums and air shows, when an old F-14 fires up its engines, veterans still feel that familiar rumble in their chests, a reminder of an era when one aircraft stood alone at the top of the world. In a world where entire battles can be decided in seconds, the F-14 Tomcat showed that mastery of the skies is as much about precision as power. It was the guardian of the fleet, the sword of the sea, a machine that could strike with terrifying accuracy. One missile, one target, one moment that would define an era. When the smoke cleared over the Gulf of Sidra, the message was clear: the Tomcat was untouchable.